Welcome to the Three Old Goalies podcast, brought to you by White Glove Goalkeeping. Three Old Goalies is not intended for goalkeepers under the age of 17. Thanks again for listening to the Three Old Goalies with your hosts, Greg Deutsch, Pat Johnston, and Eric Vaughter. To kick off Season 5, the Three Old Goalies welcome today's guest, Kyle Johnston from Duke University.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into podcasts, the Three Old Goalies reemerge at a beach near you. And we're thrilled today to have a young... how should we call it? Should we call Kyle an up-and-coming goalkeeper coach? Or should we call him just like a goalkeeper? Kyle Johnston, who's Pat Johnston's son, obviously the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Goalkeeper coach at Duke University. Did you do 2 years, Kyle, at Chapel Hill?
Just one.
Just one at the dark side, then you moved to Duke, and so you saw the light, and now you're at Duke University being the goalkeeper coach. And if I'm not mistaken, you're a new father. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. 10-month-old. That's right.
Magic. Well, as I said, folks, welcome back to the Three Old Goalies. It's been a while. We have our reasons, and we're not sharing them. But anyway, welcome in Greg Deutsch from Cincinnati, Pat Johnston from Florida, and our guest tonight, Kyle Johnston, son of Pat Johnston, and he's in Durham, North Carolina. And as always, we got Ryan Sparks working for us on the producing level. So again, as we always say, this is an adult show. We may cuss occasionally. We share our opinions, and they're our opinions only. You can't have them. And having said all that, Greg, I will turn it over to you and let her rip.
All right. Well, Pat, thanks for setting this up. Obviously, having your son. By the way, EV, this is, I believe, our second. We had Steve from Wheaton College, if you remember, with his father, Cliff.
That's right.
So McGrath. So welcome, Kyle. Thanks again for taking your evening and being subject to this tonight. So we're excited to have you. Let's talk about the background a little bit, Kyle. A lot of people will be surprised. Obviously, your father was a legendary goalkeeper at Duke, went over to Europe, England specifically, was over there with a few English teams before the permit issues got straightened out several years later. So you became a Newcastle fan because of that. When you were, at a young age, how much goalkeeping was Pat trying to teach you?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say thanks for having me. Happy to hang out with the Three Old Goalies on my Sunday evening. Good to see my dad as always. Think I'll see him again in a week or so, but great to be on with you guys. Recalling my past, obviously goalkeeping was always a big part of it. My dad was very strategic in how he raised me as a young soccer player. And within all of my training as a field player, it was always supplemented with some sort of goalkeeping, right? And as we all know, it's really important for young players, especially nowadays, to grow up playing on the field as well, and how that helps improve your feet and the necessary skills that you need when playing out of the back. But with that being said, again, we always did a lot of individual training. Of course, there was a natural instinct that I had to the position due to him and his past. But, as I got older, it was one of those things where I kind of deviated from the path a little bit. And ultimately, ended up as a field player in my later years before going into college. So if there's anything that you want me to specify within that, I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. You are coaching at a Division I school in Duke. You left, and we'll get into this, North Carolina, another Division I, College of Charleston, another Division I, but you actually played Division III. So when you were getting recruited, obviously your dad was coaching. So was it automatically that, hey, you're just going to Sewanee and take it from there, or were there any other decisions at that point?
Yeah, I mean, candidly, I wasn't the best in my approach to the process. And I think, especially being on the other side of things now as a college coach and seeing the amount of effort you have to put into your process to get as many eyes on you as you can and put yourself out there, that limited a lot of my options. And it's something I would certainly guide any young aspiring player to play that wants to play in college, guide them not to do it the way I did it in that sense. But there were other potential options for me, but what it came down to was tuition remission at Sewanee with my dad working as the women's coach wasn't something that we could beat. And truthfully, at the time, at that phase of my life, it was probably the right place for me and what I was looking for. And, I had gone through some things to where Sewanee was the right fit at the point in time that I chose to go there.
Like I said, I think a lot of people don't know you were a striker, not a goalkeeper in college for all 4 years. And it's an interesting story on how you got in the goal later on in life. And I'm sure I want you to talk about that here on the show. But what I was going to ask you is your experience coming from, playing D3. How does that relate now, you coaching Division I?
Yeah. It's my experience, again, as a striker was very unique. So what I think is best is to kind of relate that to how that helps me as a goalkeeping coach specifically, and then also holistically as a coach in general. One of my greatest strengths in my opinion as a coach is right, just the sheer amount of striking balls I did to be a good forward, and how I can create more realistic pictures and strikes for our goalkeepers because of the way I hit a ball. I think there's a lot of goalkeeper coaches who can strike a ball very well, but are they hitting it with knuckle? Are they curling it into the far post? Are they giving, those a little bit more intricate striking details to the goalkeepers at times? I think in terms of the level, of course, going from D3 to D1, and particularly Duke in the ACC, I mean, it's a massive jump. But I just always have been a student of the game. Obviously, I learned from one of the best, and so my understanding of the game was always there. It was just interesting in terms of having played as a striker and then moving to be a goalkeeper after, as you touched upon, basically after college, and then also in my younger years. I think at the end of the day, I think it's given me a more holistic perspective that I can take into my goalkeeper coaching, but also my coaching as a whole. Even though it was a very different level than to what I'm working at now.
Now, you were fortunate to go abroad, so I want to dig a little deeper into that. How did that happen? And explain how you ended up in Spain, and share some stories there, because that is where you became, you got to play goalkeeper. So again, how did this whole take place?
Yeah, so I was looking forward to sharing this, and I've always owed a big thank you to EV for assisting me in that process, and basically how it's paved the way for my whole professional career many years later. Of course, Dad, the thank yous and gratitude to you are endless in that aspect. But what happened was it initially started with me preparing to do a semester abroad. It was something that I was able to do again, it was through Sewanee. So tuition remission covered it for me to go over there and have that experience of living in Spain, one of the best footballing countries in the world. And I'll actually never forget the moment. My dad and I were sat on the couch. We know that I'm taking off in, a couple months to go to Spain. The fall season had just ended for Sewanee. And he was like, hey, when you go over there, you should try to be a keeper. And I was like, kind of looked at him like, what'd you just say? And he was like, well, you have good foot skills and, you played a lot when you were younger. So that's something that they look for over there. And why not give it a crack? And so that's what happened. I was like, all right, let's try it out. And, because of my background and because of my dad, I think I had a base that I could build on even at an older age. I would have been 19 or 20 at the time, to still, start at a good level, a decent level at least. And so with that being said, this is where EV comes into play. I was training with my dad a lot, and then Dad, I don't remember where you went, but you went somewhere for like a week or something. Maybe you went recruiting, or I can't recall. But my dad called EV and said, hey, would you be willing to come up and train Kyle? So EV made the trek from Nashville, about an hour 15, hour 30 minutes, a few different times to come up and train me, just train me one-on-one and help me out and evaluate me some as well, EV, if that's right. And kind of share your opinions on me and share them with my dad as well. And, the one story in particular, when EV came up is one of the mornings, it was freezing. I mean, it was like so much colder than it normally gets in Sewanee. And I want to say like 15 degrees or something like that. And sure enough, no problem. Evie still made the trip up. We had a great training session and went from there. So yeah, that's ultimately what got me back into keeping as I went over to Spain. Let's test the water, see what kind of level I could play at, just kind of create this new experience for myself and ultimately see where it would take me.
So if Evie, why don't you comment? What did you think of Kyle when you were training him? I mean, and people don't know he's 6'5", so obviously that is helping him, but he hasn't really played any collegiate games. So what was your
answer that? But go ahead, Pat. What were you going to say?
I was going to say when Kyle was talking about us being on the couch and talking about it.
Pat, you're being muted.
It says I'm on.
You're still being muted.
I
can hear him.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
I can't hear him either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
You want to try again, Pat?
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know if Ryan can. All right, Evie. I guess Pat's going to have to write sign language or write, on paper here. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Well, the only thing I was going to say was the truly amazing thing in this whole story is that, this might be the first time ever that a son has listened to what his father had, his advice his father gave. Right? I mean, I don't know if I've ever sat on the couch with my son and goes, "Hey, you should probably do this," and they go, "Dad, come on."
So Evie, since you can hear me, you can transfer this on. But yeah. Kyle's always had.
We still can't hear you, Pat.
He had a level head. Okay, I'm talking to Evie. Piss off, Rick.
Kyle, can you hear him?
No, I can't. Unfortunately,
it's like half of us can hear him and half of us can't. I can hear him. Evie can hear him.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So Ryan, tell them let me talk for a minute. Okay.
I've taken your advice long enough, Dad. It's time to let these guys talk. Even though EB was just praising me for it.
I think this is on purpose.
So,
I do.
You go over there. You definitely was surprising, I guess. Right? You got a tryout, right, with a Spanish club. It didn't work out, but go into that a little bit. I mean, what was the process of quote unquote, especially an American getting a tryout, right?
Yeah. I did the old door to door, right? And just was looking up clubs in the area and went to their training grounds or facilities and just knocked and said, "Hey, would you have a look at me? Would you have me out?" And so ultimately it was Union Darbe in Madrid. At the time we're playing in the third tier, that basically let me hop in with them and let me train. And I managed to kind of hang around with them and train for roughly 3 of the 4 months that I was abroad. And it was a great experience. I was lucky to be around some other good goalkeepers who had really good experiences. One in particular was a really nice guy who spoke great English, because at the time my Spanish wasn't very good. And he had actually played at Tottenham Hotspur, primarily through the academy, and then went back over to Spain. He was Spanish, went back over to Spain. And he was a great kind of guy in guiding me. His name was Raul. And got to train and play every day. And that's what I was looking for when I went over there. Obviously, I was hoping for more than that. It didn't materialize, but had a great experience. And after that, it was back to the States.
Yeah. So, you coached at Swanee a little bit, but then College of Charleston, you applied for the famous Ralph Lundy, as we all know, but, Keith Wiggins had taken over that program. You're in Spain, and, Charleston's a pretty good place. And, the story goes, you tell your wife and she's already packing. So, what was that like? What was that like when you sort of got the offer? You weren't sure, but your wife's heading already out the door.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It had become clear that playing was coming to an end, because we actually had gone back to Spain after we had graduated. So this is the second time we went back. And that being said, because I had coached at Swanee in the fall previously, before we moved back to Spain, her and I had done some camps in the summer. I met an assistant at the College of Charleston. So that's where, the connection kind of happened and where it all started. And so I got a call from Keith, because he had Rob was his name. Rob Seaton had recommended me to Keith Wiggins. So Keith called me, and at that point I knew it was going to be coaching. That's the direction I was heading. And yeah, I said, "Natalie, I just, the College of Charleston coach just reached out to me, and they're interested in bringing me in." And, at that point we had discussed, we knew that coaching was my direction. It's what I wanted to do. And, she's basically already moved on in her mind that we were going to Charleston. And I kept looking at her like, "Look, he hasn't offered me the job yet. So settle down, because I don't want you to be heartbroken if it doesn't work out." And she had vacationed in Kiowa Island, all her life, which is very close to Charleston. So she knew it really well. And I mean, what a place. I mean, anybody who has the opportunity to live there, it's a special spot. So you can see why she had moved on in her mind.
So what was the interview process like with Keith?
Can you hear me yet, Maven?
Yeah, pretty informal. Just primarily some phone call with Keith, phone call with Tam McGowan, who was the top assistant at the time. And obviously Rob was very much in my corner, pushing to bring me in. So I think there was kind of a trust aspect there with Keith already knowing Rob. So, it wasn't as, it wasn't this big thing. It was just a few calls, and next thing you know, I was on my way.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, it's not only goalkeeping coaching at the time; it was an assistant coach. Did you feel you were ready for that, or were you just going to soak in things and let it, see how it went?
Yeah, I felt ready for it. Of course, there was nerves. And you kind of touched upon it a second ago, but when you're a D3 guy and you're moving up to the D1 level for the first time, you don't really know what you're getting into. That of course brought an extra amount of nervousness, but I felt like the game has always been my life. I grew up on it. I've had so many conversations about it. I've been around it in so many different ways. I'd actually spent time at Chattanooga Red Wolves in the summer before that as well, as a player, basically trialing with them as well. So, I had been in a higher level environment, and I felt pretty ready. Yeah, I was excited.
So
Yeah, I mean,
can you
we
hear
can
me
touch it.
now?
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Or
go
I
go
can.
for it, Pat.
Okay. So listen, I'm sorry to regress here, but let's go back to that conversation on the couch about you going to Spain. No, I think, listen, I wouldn't do this if I didn't think it added to the show. To me, it was a no-brainer. They're going to look at you and they're going to see goalkeeper. That's what they're going to see. Okay. Now, the thing that would blow them away is like, holy shit, this kid can play with his feet too. 6'5" Americans don't go over to Europe and are able to play with their feet. Definitely not 10 years ago or however long it was. But this comes down to Greg. So he goes to Spain, and Greg, you said he went over and it didn't work out. Or you said something to the effect that, while he didn't make it, so it was a failure. Okay. I paraphrase. It's not what you said, but that led to it. And so I shook my head there and I say, no, I completely disagree with that, because Kyle probably wouldn't be where he is right now if he didn't go and do that and fail. Right. So it's all part of the process. And this is something, guys, I'm sorry to hijack it here, but EV, you look at two arcs that you had firsthand experience with. One of them was me, which God bless you, you're still around. And then the other one was Mark Dodd. Okay. Two completely different arcs. Okay. Me, I was thinking linearly. I go to England, and if I don't make it, it's a failure. Okay. And Mark Dodd was just like, I go to England, I don't make it, I'm better for the experience, or wherever he ended up doing it. I've had this conversation with Dodder. And I think too much, especially for the true freshmen coming out of high school today, okay, they're still stuck in that linear train of thought that if it's not D1, if it's not NCAA, it's bust. And I'm trying to make this visual for everyone to say, listen, it's not north-south. You're not on a 2-lane highway here. You're on a roundabout, and you got all kinds of exits, and that roundabout may take you off your line, but then you'll come back and you'll be better for it, et cetera. And it always goes back to EV. I've said this many times. EV said, when you go over, don't think that way. And of course, I didn't listen to him. I thought this is it. And, so I think what Kyle's had is a very interesting path to where he is, where he got off on plenty of places. He's playing forward. He's playing goalkeeper. He's trying out in the USL. He's, over in Spain, knocking on doors. Okay. He's got me here saying, pulling strings, and EV doing this. So it's just, to me, process of what he did. And I just think it was very, very much the manifestation of where he is now. So
there's no doubt that as you go, as Pat said, as you go along your path, you theoretically, if you're a smart person, you're learning everything you do is a learning situation, right? That you incorporate back into your game, whatever your game may be. If it's goalkeeping, if it's playing out in the field, every time you step on the field, even in training, you should be learning something, right? That you put in your knowledge bank and you use to build to where you're going to get to. And Pat's right. I mean, you go over to Spain, you have another culture. It's interesting to me because Kyle may be one of the few people in the United States who's been involved with goalkeeping in Spain, right? What are the differences between goalkeeping training in Spain or goalkeeping training in England, which Pat's very familiar with, goalkeeper training in the United States, goalkeeper training in Brazil, whatever country it is. There's always little intricacies that you pick up that, particularly now as a coach, you can fall back on those things and say, hey, this is, here's a little bit of what we learned in Spain. Here's a little bit of what we learned, in England. Here's a little bit of what we learned up on the mountain in Sewanee, all that stuff. Kids you're working with now, I think it helps you, but the key to that, as Pat said, is you have to be open to learning it. You have to be open to winning. You have to be open to failing. You have to be open to opportunity. You have to make decisions where opportunity maybe takes a back seat to whatever you're doing, but it all, comes into the ball of wax of what you're doing now as in this game.
Right. And so listen, since Heaney's not on right now, we probably only going to have 3 people listen to this, but sorry, Kyle, inside joke there. But it's just that thing. I wish the coaches would open their minds at these clubs, to open the minds of these kids, because you guys know the thing I'm doing now with Tony, etc. And we get so many kids that just think it's a dead end for them, and it's like, come on, buddy, you got a long way to go. But anyway, so Kyle, you ended up, if I remember correctly, you ended up at the exact camp where you met Rob.
That's right. Yeah.
Because was Tony supposed to go and couldn't, and then you ended up taking his place. I think you were a surrogate, and that's how.
No, you.
Oh yeah, it was either me or Tony.
Yeah, it was you ended up not going, and Tony was going, but I could basically join in as another Sewanee coach on the men's side. Because when I was in Sewanee, I worked with the women's goalkeepers as well. So I was assistant for both programs. And I worked both camps. I actually played a final game with Bruce Talbot and Houston FC in San Antonio. And then drove back to Houston the night before, got up at 6 a.m. and drove all the way to Atlanta, because I was basically leaving Houston for good to work the first the men's camp, or the boys camp for exact. Yeah.
Wow. So, and by the way, when I say Tony, it's Tony Pasella, just in case there was any confusion. So
Thanks for clarifying that, Pat.
Yeah.
So, you talked about Chattanooga, you talked about Houston, you talked about Carolina Dynamo. You had a base. You were at college at Charleston for 3.5 seasons. What did you appreciate about that program looking back? Because now, from there, you've been at 2 ACC schools. So resources, of course, are going to come into play. But what would you tell us? Like, I really enjoyed this experience because you fill in the blank.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask me that question for any of the better or best experiences of my life, the answer is always going to be the people. And Charleston truly was one of the best experiences of my life. And the answer would be the people. Working with Keith, Tam, and Rob every day was it was such a joy. And in particular, Keith was the head coach, and there's always a somewhat different dynamic. And, but what a guy, what an amazing person above all else. But Tam, Rob, and I would drive into work together every single day. It was like I was getting first-class studies in banter, right? And all the good banter that they had, and jokes, and all the time, just spending that time with them, and truthfully learning from them as well, was phenomenal. I mean, life-changing for me, massive part of my growth. And, I couldn't thank them enough, in general, but certainly even just for the simple things in their daily lives that I could kind of learn from and pick their brains about, and things like that. So, that would be what stood out the most. I think the most unique part of the Charleston experience outside of that is the city, right? Is the place. the program is great because of Keith and at the time Tim and Rob, and I worked with other great coaches there along the way too, Jet Terry, Max Correa, Ryan Morris, so on and so forth. But it's like our game field was beautiful. It's right on the water. So every single day when you're going to training, you're going to the office, you're looking at the water, you're crossing the Ravenel Bridge. The city's historic. They have laws against changing it basically, so it keeps a very historic feel. So for me, when you get to put those two things together, basically the lifestyle along with the people and the football that the people make, it was awesome. It was awesome.
So you're there 3.5 seasons. Carolina comes calling, or what happened there that just opens up and this is an opportunity for you, or what was the pathway there? I mean, this is a major jump, right? Something that you're like, oh my gosh, hey, this is the ACC, one of the best conferences in college soccer in the United States.
Yeah, so it's actually another camp story. There was a former Carolina assistant in Florida that was running these 77 camps. I went down to work at a couple different times as an assistant for the College of Charleston, and just got to know him through that. And ultimately, when Carolina had opened up the job, the head coach Carlos called Christian Nagu and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that would be a good fit to coach the keepers and assist in all other aspects of the program?" And Christian said, "Yeah, I know a guy." And basically, it went from there, right? I ended up getting a call from Graham Porter, the top assistant at the time, and he said, "Would you be interested? And can I get to know you a little bit better?" And after a couple calls and then a Zoom interview, I got hired. So I was packing my bags and on my way again.
All right, so you're with Carolina. What do you notice in the quality of keepers that you're recruiting now? Is it that much of a jump, or what were some of the things that you felt distinguished a keeper at College of Charleston and Carolina?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say it's that big of a jump, but there certainly is a gap there overall, and I'd be lying if I said any different. I think the biggest difference is the physical piece. I think we get better athletes overall, and I think maybe the skill level is somewhat comparable. Although similar to my dad talking about how growth's not linear, I don't think there's any real kind of black and white answer, because good keepers come in all different shapes and sizes and mentalities, and so really it just depends. But I think certainly if I was talking about the whole picture, and keepers, partially included, it's the athletic base of the players in the ACC compared to that of of a mid-major program.
When you talk about it, it's like, what's the difference at each level, right? And you get to the point, I think, where like you take a D1 keeper that starts in a top 40 RPI program. Okay. You take a keeper like that and you say, what's the difference between those guys and the guys that are playing in the UPS or the USL? Sorry, the USL, acronym soup. And it becomes like the margins just get so much harder to really describe and define. It's one of those things for me anyway. When I look at it, I just know. It's like I look at this guy and look at how this guy moves versus how this guy moves. Look at how these hands are just quieter than these. And it just becomes these margins that it's so to actually be able to articulate it. That's a tough question.
It's really hard, is. Yeah.
Of course, Pat. So you're there a year, and again, now Duke comes calling, and you've been there 2 years. What is the difference in your opinion, in the coaching styles with Johnny Kerr and Carlos for goalkeeping?
Yeah. I think John is probably a bit more involved in his attention towards, coaching the keeper daily, as where Carlos was more so, you got it, like go make it great and take ownership of it. And that's not to say that John doesn't do that, but John probably has a little more hands-on attention. And candidly, both have worked. And if you look at, let's say, Duke, for example, before I got to Duke, they had Elliot Hamill, who's an All-American, and then Julian Eystone, who's on a first team contract at Brentford, right? So they were doing great, even before I ever arrived. And Carolina, the same thing, right? And so that's a testament to basically them and the keepers they bring in, and ultimately their oversight always is most important for anything in the program that goes well, especially if it's consistent year after year. So yeah, I think that would probably be just the small kind of difference between the two, in contrasting styles, if you want to call it, and how the keepers were managed and how I was, managing the keepers within both systems.
Yeah, you guys, you mentioned some fantastic keepers there. You yourself got to train, Wessel Spiel. So let's talk about him a little bit. He became an All-American, but we go back to that mid-major, sort of comment about College of Charlotte. He comes from Hofstra. And what did you see in him that you thought he could play at Duke? Because, and Evie, this is pretty interesting. And Ryan, I don't think you know this. Kyle's our 7th Duke person on the show. Robbie, Carla, Pat, Tony Robinson, Bill Hempton, Mark Dodd, and now Kyle. So what is I'll say it sort of like this. What is the Duke standard for goalkeeping?
Is very high. I can tell you that. Funny enough, the year that Wessel was first team All-American, at the same time on the women's side, their keeper was also All-American. So Leah Freeman is her name, and they were, obviously we've had great goalkeepers coming through on both sides, which is awesome. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, especially if you looked at, let's just take the last 3 goalkeepers who are all doing very well. Eric, who was with us last year, had a similar kind of pathway as Wessel. And he's now signed a pro contract with North Texas and Dallas, and we'll see if he kind of continues to kick on from there. I believe he will. But I feel like the difference maker with them was their feet. Just how they could express the full range of passing with consistency. Now, of course, if you compare one next to it, the other, maybe one had a better left foot, or maybe one was a little bit better at this, or, the fine margins as we were discussing a moment ago. But I feel like that would be the difference, right? That's what we need from our goalkeepers at Duke, because, we don't play in a way that is, all small passes in front of the goal, right? That's something we might do if that's the best solution at that point in time. But we need to be able to play beyond. We need to be able to play into the striker, into the target. And we need our keeper to be able to do those things to give us that +1 at the back. So, yeah, I feel that would be the kind of clear thing where those 3 guys were different than many other keepers that you would see out there. And it was consistent.
What do you look for when you're recruiting goalkeeper for Duke?
I always say this, and this is the, foundation of my philosophy of what a goalkeeper should be. And it starts with the mental piece, and it's a burning desire and passion to keep the ball out of the net. So even though we're talking about, the footwork distribution piece being what has been consistent with recent Duke goalkeepers, if you don't take a lot of pride in stopping the ball from going in the goal, then you're not cut out to play a Duke or to play at this level, in my opinion. And I think it feels like, to me at least, sometimes, particularly with younger goalkeepers and the environments that they come from, that's not stressed enough. So, like, I'll give you an example. A lot of times if teams are playing small side or things like that, there's a lot of balls in the goal. I'm like, and I tell our keepers this, I'm like, we can't have that. I don't want to see that. Put them all on the side. I don't even want to see a ball in the goal. Let's not create that image. Let's make sure that we do everything we can to prevent it. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Hey, Greg, can I interject here?
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. Go
So
for it.
listen, EV, I still quote you to this day when I'm training kids, where the shot's taken and the kid watches it go in. And EV's deadpan. He would turn and he would say, "You are allowed to save the ball," is what he would say. And that's I look at these kids, and the first time I say that, and the second time I start cussing and ranting and raving. Didn't you get what I was saying the first time? But yeah, it's like, what are you doing standing in there if you don't care if it goes past you? Why are you even in there? So,
and that's what determines games, right? It's simple, but why would we ever move away from that?
You know where I got that, Greg? That was from Hank.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, because Hank would say, if you get scored on, you get scored on. But I don't want your defenders turning around and seeing you standing there. Right? Because, they may have made a mistake, but they were trying. The least you can do is try to do your job, which is to try to save the ball.
Yeah.
Right? And it may go in, but I don't want them turning around and seeing you standing there, not even trying for the ball. And so that developed into, hey, you're allowed to try to save it.
That was a good one, Pat. So, Kyle, what do you feel the biggest mental trap keepers fall into?
Yeah, I mean, the easy kind of point to make is mistake management and just letting it compound, right? Not recognizing that they need to move on quickly, or else it will compound and get worse and worse. So, yeah, I would say mistake management for sure.
Got it. The next series of questions I want to ask are really related to training. And I want you to pick, what should a keeper work on 3 times a week to improve fast?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's layers to that question, right? Like, what level are they playing at? What do they need to develop individually, right? Like, I think about our guys, if they really want to develop something fast, what would I have them work on 3 times a week? It's like, if it's 10 minutes by themselves, left foot, right? They probably need to improve their left foot. For the most part, it's usually not good enough. But yeah, that at our level, I'm just going to go with that. Yeah, left foot.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, jump on in here. I got 2 more that I want to ask, but go ahead.
I just want to expand on that question. Let's say you have a really young goal.
Ryan.
Of course not.
I can hear you, Ryan.
Everybody else can hear me but Greg, right? Cool.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Evie? Are we good?
Yes.
All right. Greg, you're just going to have to deal with not knowing what I'm asking.
Greg shit.
Yeah, that's it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So my question is,
if you only have 30 minutes, what would you say matters the most in the training?
Greg.
What?
Ryan's going to ask a question just because of so he's asking that right now, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, boss.
We're good. I don't know what's going on with it. Obviously, we're super tech. No, I'm not done with my question yet. No. So
we should do this from now on. Hey, this is a great drinking game.
It is. All right. So, Kyle, my question is going to be for a really young goalkeeper. let's say it's an example. I have a 9-year-old who right now really wants to focus being in goal, and we are, as much as every single one of the members of our family that has played the game has been a goalkeeper, our focus is still to try to get him as much footwork as possible so he does get time in the field as well. Mm-hmm. What do you think for a really, really young keeper that's really focused on, I want to be a keeper? What do they really need to focus on individually in order to be successful long term?
Yeah, I think it's the fundamentals of technique outside of them, with you addressing the context of he's already playing on the field to improve. It would be the fundamentals of technique. And then, hopefully this is for me what makes a great coach, especially at that age. But even as you get older is, the installation of the love for the position, making it fun, making it exciting, making sure they want to keep showing up and they want to keep learning the intricate details that'll ultimately help them build their foundation to become, a much better and greater keeper one day.
Yeah, he's already obsessed with trying to keep the ball out of the net. So he's got one thing going the right way based on everybody's conversation.
That's a good name for a website.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Keep it out of the .net.
Yeah, that's it.
But if it's okay, I'd like to ask a question because as you asked me 3 times a week, 10 minutes, what should they work on? I would be curious to hear your guys' answers because I think so much within, the context for which I work. And if I'm doing that, I'm probably thinking in a very specific way for a specific goalkeeper. Is there something that you guys would add to that maybe could give me further insight?
Listen, my first thing, Kyle, would be catching a damn ball, right? Without spilling it. I mean, if you can't do that, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. So I definitely agree with that, right? But it's just when that question was asked, it's like, I don't think our guys would be at Duke if they couldn't do that already, right? So but it makes perfect sense, if they can't do that, they better work on it.
Pat, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, again, like Kyle said, there's layers, but for me, and I'm not talking about a Duke level goalkeeper, but to me, if you can, the fundamentals, if you're in the right position in a good set position, and you can move a step right or left quick, and your hands are good, as you say. Okay, if you can do those 4 things, you're going to make it through. You can play in college, in my opinion, easily. Okay. It's just too many, like Kyle and I had this conversation, and it did come back to bite one of his keepers and I see this all the time, guys, and I know I'm probably like going to buck in the grain, but I see too many keepers jump and spread when the shot's still in the air. And it's like, if you don't do that, and you just take a step towards the way the ball's going, you're going to save a lot of shots. Okay. Frankly, if you're in the right position and all you do with your hands is parry and you make kick saves when it's low, you're going to save a ton of shots. You're going to do well because then everything's going to have to be in the corner. So my answer in a long-winded way is fundamentals. Okay. Positioning, have a good set of hands, and be able to move laterally and be set when the shot comes. And those were the 4 things I would work on. If I had a goalkeeper 10 minutes for 3 sessions a week, that's what I would do right there.
EV?
I would work on, I do this, or when I was coaching, I did this. I worked on catching. Because if you catch the ball, we're on attack now. We have the ball, right? And that's number 1. Right, the whole point of defense is to get the ball back. Okay, team defense, goalkeeping, whatever, is to get the ball back. Okay, that's number 1. The number 2 is if you can consistently catch the ball, do you know how deflating that is to the other team? Mm-hmm. I mean, they hit what they think is a blinder, and you catch it. You don't have to say anything. They're just like fuck. Right? Now, they hit a blinder and you parry it away, you make a save, but it's a corner. they're still kind of excited, right? But you catch it, it's like, dude, yeah, cake, and with goalkeepers at all levels that I've ever worked with, I say three things. It's a simple position, okay? As we've talked about, do anything you can to keep the ball out of the goal. I don't care how you do it during the game. We'll train at it. I don't care how you do it during the game. Keep it out of the goal. Okay. 2, if you can catch it while you're keeping it out of the goal, great. Okay. And then 3, if you catch it, don't give it back to the other team. Because you've already stolen it from them once. Don't go return it. Right. And that's, and that all comes into what Kyle's talking about. You put it down, you play with your feet. Now we still have the ball, we still have possession, we're still doing whatever we want to do. Everybody wants to do the sidewinder nowadays. You know what you have to do the sidewinder? Anybody know? Bueller?
Flexibility.
The ball.
Oh yeah, the ball. Yeah. And flexibility.
The ball.
Yeah.
So that's that's what I would work at.
Hey, Greg, I'd like to change my answer for 3 times a week for 10 minutes. I would have my keepers work on punching crosses.
All right, Pat, I'm gonna start with you on this question, and then I want your son to answer it. What drills are overrated versus underrated, Pat?
This is probably a lightning rod, but I can't stand footwork drills and the ladder and this kind of shit and all that. I like everything in terms of movement that we do in training to be how you would move in the game. So yeah. And then the other thing that I really question, and it's fun and you do it as a keeper, because Kyle's brought up a good point, is you want to keep them engaged. Okay. But you see all these drills where the keepers are running, and then out of the running position, they take off and make the save. And I'm trying to think how many times you actually see a keeper have the opportunity to run into the save, right? Now, yeah, you can fly like an eagle when you're running, and a quality guy, he can take off, but it's basically you're set. It's a power step and you go. That's how you train. You don't run into the save. Those are my 2 right there.
All right, Kyle.
Yeah, his overrated one is for sure the best answer. I'm gonna have a little bit of a hot take here, outside of his answer, shake things up a little bit. I think volleys at a certain point become overrated. I do them every day, to be clear, at least some amount, some small amount, pretty much every day, I should say. But I think it can become overrated, which then leads to my second point, which I find underrated, which is trying to hit the ball off a lot of different surfaces in a lot of different ways, to where it comes off the foot in a way that I'd argue is more game realistic and unpredictable, and you have to adapt and so on and so forth.
EV, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, no, I think both are right. I agree 100% with Pat. The cones and the ladders and stuff like that, they're fine for camp. They're fine for young goalkeepers who haven't yet learned how, the full extent of how to move in goal. But Pat's right. You think about it. If you're in the right position, you take about a step and a half at the most. By the time because if you take longer than that, the ball's already it's on you, and it's probably past you. So you have really a step and a half to react to it. The other thing that I would say is, and I know everybody does it for goalkeeper fitness more than training, but what used to be called pressure training, where you'd go full out. Okay. I'm sorry, if you're going full out in a game for a minute, then, fire, you have my permission to go and kill all your field players, because if you're under that kind of pressure, you're like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, you watch top level goalkeeping, you maybe make 3 saves and that's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, EV.
Well,
I'm gonna be. I have to disagree there. The
okay.
reason I like it in training is because it creates muscle memory.
Yeah.
Okay, you break them down physically, then say, all right, now you have to perform this technical maneuver, whatever you want to call it, and if you can do it when you are broken down physically like that, it then becomes instinctive, where you don't think about it. You're doing it because you've done it when basically that's the only thing you can think of other than your next breath, right? So that's why I do that. It's not to make them a Navy SEAL or, toughen them up, so to speak. It's to like get you to the point where you have to execute when it's going to become something that it just becomes instinctive to you because you can execute it when you're about to die, kind of thing.
Point taken, and you're right. But I don't do it like I was answering in the concept of what do you do 30 minutes every day? I wouldn't do that. I do that during preseason because you're right. You got to, you got to push them a little bit, and you got muscle memory is great when they're slobbering, and they're still making the save. That's magic, But I think pressure training is maybe in my mind, is one of the most overrated at a certain time.
Fair
All right,
enough.
so we got about 4 or 5 minutes here before we close up. So, Kyle, who's the best goalkeeper you've ever coached?
Oh, that's a grenade.
For sure, the last two. We'll put them in together. Wessel's taken off, in terms of since he's left Duke. And ultimately we'll see if Eric can match that. But 2 high level goalkeepers, very good at different things. And yeah, we'll put
Now,
them on the same
could I ask on this? So you've had the opportunity to train Julian Eystone as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
he's in the Premier League, right?
Yeah. I've
19
trained
years
him
old.
a couple times. So to be fair, I mean, if you threw him in, I think the thing about Julian is, him, Wessel, and Eric were all on the same level. Julian was just 4 or 5 years younger. So it's like, certainly from a potential aspect, you'd have to say Julian.
All right, best college atmosphere you've coached at or coached in?
Man, there's been some really fun ones since getting into the ACC. Certainly Duke, Carolina, if you were to isolate one game, particularly at home, pack stands, full capacity. My dad was actually there. So that atmosphere, I think away atmospheres, there's some good ones in the ACC as well, like Virginia, get good crowds out. When we went up to Syracuse, even though it was in the 20s, no problem. They're all out there. But yeah, definitely Duke versus Carolina.
All right, and one of my last questions before I hand it back to Evie and Pat is, if you could give young goalkeepers one piece of advice, what would it be, please?
Yeah, make sure that the reason you show up every day is because you really love it. And if you love it enough, then you're going to want to develop so badly that the daily effort is just going to be something that you do and not something that you think about too much. So put yourself in an environment, if you can, to where you really enjoy, the coach, the people you're around, and ultimately the sport itself, and good things will come off the back of that.
All right, Evie, to headquarters we go. Anything you'd like to ask Kyle or Pat in that sense?
Pat, you go ahead. You got anything to add? I will say this. All right, what a lot of people don't know is Pat's daughter, Nikki, actually spent some time in goal during her college career.
Yep.
Because Pat needed a goalkeeper, and obviously, it was in her blood and I trained her a couple of times when I was working with the team, and dude, she was good too. I mean, so Pat could be like Secretariat, put him out to stud, and we create goalkeepers.
Well, what I did with Nick was I just, again, it was a form of pressure training, but not in the physical sense. When Nikki was a little girl, I used to play catch with her and throw it over her head every time and make her catch up here. Now, did her eye-hand coordination, was it already there, or did that bring it out? Because guys, and I love the women's game, but we all know as women's coaches that if there's a shot coming high, the buns start to pucker up, right? So
It's an adventure.
But Nikki could have been a wide receiver in the NFL when it came to running down a pass and catching it. And, that's part of the reason she was so damn good. It was just like, that girl can catch a ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
she could catch a ball and she could move. She could move quickly and she could move like a goalkeeper. And I think that's from playing midfield and stuff like that. But, similar to what Kyle could do, because Kyle had played in the field, the movement aspect of things was inherent.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about, I probably could have some funny stories about when he was a kid and I took him to England and put him in this atmosphere and, the crazy dudes at Everton, Kyle, and all of that. But, yeah, I guess I'll tell that story real quick just because. Okay. So we're sitting in the Everton section. We're Newcastle fans, right? He suffered the sins of the father, unfortunately. And so these guys behind us, they're screaming. There's three of them, and they are screaming at the Toon Army, who is in the stand 100 yards away. Yeah, they're screaming, "You fucking Geordie bastards!" This and that and the other. And Kyle's 8 years old, something like that. Kyle says, "Dad, they're right behind us, right?" And he goes, "Dad, why are those guys screaming like that?" And I go, me being the typical American, I turn around and go, "Hey, why are you guys screaming at them like that? They can't even hear you." And Kyle, do you want to finish the story? It was like the funniest thing I've seen. They just froze and they looked, and then one guy started frothing at the mouth, and he goes, "They're not even human. And then the other guy goes, "They crawled out of the mud with webs between their fingers and their toes." And I just looked at Kyle and I go, "Do you understand why now they're screaming at him like that?"
And that right there is when I knew that football was for me.
But so look,
That is a classic.
I know that we self-imposed hours over, but here's something that is very relevant to what I'm doing now today. And Kyle, I haven't had this conversation with you, but I'm sure you'll agree with me, or I think you would, is you never really hit your peak physical maturity probably till you were like 22 or 23 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when, you realize you became more flexible, etc. Okay. So here you are. Okay. So Kyle ends up going with the College of Charleston, and he does this at Duke, and I don't know to what extent at Carolina, but Kyle gets thrown in the field as like the target 9 for the opposition, and they got to deal with him, and he'll play center back. He plays all over the pitch in training, okay, and in goal.
Yeah, including goal. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
And you're a Duke with Duke, and you're with Carolina. You're with the College of Charleston, and in your early mid-20s, you are on that field like you belong in all of those positions, right? If you're fit, it's like you're not a weakness in the training session. So the point being is this: when he was 18 years old, he wouldn't have had a chance to be the player that would go in and do these things like he is at 22, 23 years old. So think about today's environment. That's exactly who these 18 and 19-year-olds that are coming out of high school are competing against. These 22, 23, 24-year-olds. What a difference. It is. Those 4 years are. And so this self-imposed calendar or timeline, I should say, to go into the NCAA at 18 and 19 years old is really a big ask. And that's why the college game now is you're seeing the portal and the foreigners and the 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old freshmen. Okay. Kyle, when Wessel finished with you as a fifth-year senior or even a sixth-year senior, he was what, 25, 26 years old, right?
No, he wasn't quite that old, but he was 23, I believe, coming up on 24. But there are guys as old as what you're saying, right? We actually had a player who, was older than that. At one stage. So,
Pat, let me interject something and hijack it real quick. What you just said. Spiel played over 4 years, 75 games. To your point, that's a lot of games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think everything that Pat was talking about, the other, the physical maturity is correct. You're 100% correct. But also the other thing that enters into that equation is experience, right? You just, at that age, enough not to chase every ball, right? Enough not to take every fake, take every other fake and you probably still win the ball back, and so that experience that we were talking about earlier goes into your whole ball of wax. And the older you get, the longer you play, the more experienced you are. Again, we all know the story of the goalkeepers kind of peaking when they're 36, 37 years old because, as long as they're physically fit, they've been there before. It's and they've seen pretty much everything. So that's a huge. And Pat's right. The difference between an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old and a 24-year-old, it's more than just mathematics of 5 years. It's light years.
Yeah.
That's what makes what Julian did so impressive. He was 17, starting every game in the ACC for Duke. But for the most part, yeah. The average, even high level American kid right now, it is challenging because we're all in environments where we need to win now, and that's the reality. So
well said.
Mm-hmm.
All right, EV. I think that sums it up.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate you spending the time with us and sharing your insights and just know that, the day you're dying, you're going to wish you had this hour and 7 minutes back because, you're going to be laying there in your bed going, those 3 old goalie bastards. Fuck, I wish I had that hour back. So, but no, we appreciate you. We appreciate you talking to us. And Pat, I appreciate you guys sharing your insights as father and son. And I will finish by saying I'm amazed that that you sat on the couch and listened to your old man. That's an amazing story. I don't know if that's ever happened in my house. So
it worked out, right? It worked out all right.
But thanks very much and congratulations on the little one. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back in it. So we'll see you in about a week or so. Awesome. Brian, thank you. Bone, thank you. Pat, thank you.
Yep.
Kyle, thank you, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, old goalies.
Yes, sir. Good night, all.
Thank you for watching and listening to the 3 Old Goalies podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media. And if you can, give us a 5-star review.